And we're back with another part on what's new in Howler 9. I think we ended in part 2 looking at rotoscoping, copy-paste for rotoscoping. So let's now move on to the next one. Starry Night and animated flares and glows is integrated into one filter and updated with more speed and real-time preview. Alright, let's have a look at that. Starry Night and animated flares. Let's go into, we'll probably want an animation for that. So let's go create, let's create a standard 640 by 480 or 360. There you go, let's take this. And let's move this over here to the left and then look for animated filters. And there is Starry Night right here. Alright. So indeed, what this does, we've had this filter for a little while, but it's just a little bit evolved. You can do a full screen preview. You can see the preview directly here now. And you can also add some more features there. So in the preview already, it gives you the star size, how many stars are moving, the softness of them. And again, you could use this for many different things, even other than plowing into a star field. I mean, this is great for science fiction short clips, portions where you look out the cockpit and you see as you're flying into the depth of space, you can see all sorts of uses for that, including adding some glow and the speed at which you move, all sorts of, and then also the vectors. This is the direction in which you're going. So if you're looking through the side window rather, and you see the stars going sideways. There's also a vector bank, so sort of a rotation effect. And let's see, atmosphere. So this is the atmosphere is really useful if you want to show some shooting stars coming down the sky. So that might be perhaps something without the rotation. Let's see, there's okay, so these are some of the filters, and then we also have the novas and flares, and so those you can also add there. And once again, you can still do the full screen preview and all that as well. So lots of different ways to configure that into some rather interesting effects and lens flares even here. Maximum size. This can slow it down quite a bit, so don't be surprised if it comes down to a little crawl. It is a lot of realism that's being added. You can choose the lens flare, so it works with a default one, but click on settings and it will pop up the flare option dialog, and so you can choose a different one, and whichever you choose, you'll see that immediately reflected here in the preview as well. So let's say, for instance, I grab this. Oh, this one here with the big halo rings. Oh god, that was a bad pun. The rings of halos around it here. And alright, so that's that. I don't need to go into that much more detail about it. It's just that this is now has evolved with a little bit more of a full screen preview and some others, and then of course when you click OK, you've got that, or you render it out to an animation. If you have an animation, you do need to have an animation for it to actually receive this rendered animation. So let's say you start with something like this, and you say you need 99 frames for your animation here. Now you can go and render that animated Starry Night, and at this point, let's say you're just ready to go, and so it renders that out to the entire sequence, and sure enough, we now have an animation, and you can do a lot of stuff with that. All right, so that's that. That's the this Starry Night and animated flares that were integrated into one filter. Now there's more. There's some speed improvements to graphics halftone filter. There's actually speed improvements in a number of filters, and well, let's just use this as a way to discover some of these filters. So I'll have to think on this one a little bit. Graphics halftone filter. Where might we find that one? graphic. That might be an artistic style. Nope. Cross contour. Nope. Stylized perhaps. Might be some of the color. Yeah, there it is. Graphic halftone. Alright, so there's a lot of coloring modifiers here, filters that take your image and do stuff with it. Graphic halftone, one of them here, and you could be in color mode, you could be in color channels, and then the size of these, all sorts of really fun stuff you can do with that, and even apply it to the entire animation. Now I'm going to do one that's not too slow, and apply that to the animation, and okay that. So now it's actually rendering across the entire animation. Once that's done, you may not recognize that image anymore. So it's going to be, actually it didn't do that, it just applied it onto this one frame. But what you can see is that this is fairly responsive, fast, and thanks in part to those new speed improvements that we've put into that particular filter. And as I said, a Munch artist too. Now, there's this one here. You can now load any portion, or only a portion, of an AVI file if desired. Let's get to that one. So let's say we load an AVI file, and let me go into a place where we have an AVI file. I think I would have to go to my D drive and find the daily dose. Alright, so here we have a number of folders of all these tutorials I've created, and I'm going to find one under what's new. There is a video here. There's another one here. Alright, let's see this one here, for instance. This one here is one that I rendered and created in PuppyRay, right? And now what you see when you open a AVI, it doesn't just go and open the whole thing. You get to choose actually the portion that you want to choose, that you want to load, the start frame and the end frame, right? So by default, you see that you know which start frame you have and what the last frame is and total frame count. And so you can load the whole video. But if you for any reason want just a portion of it, let's say the one that ends around here but starts around here, you can do so and then just click and open just that. So now you have the ability to work with just a subset of the video, and that's really cool when you have a very long video but you know you're not going to use it all. You're going to use just a portion of it, right? And then you do whatever you do with that. Alright, so that's this part. You can now load only a portion of an AVI file if desired. Loading AVIs no longer continues to load frames if the animation cannot be initialized. Alright, let's see that. Loading an AVI no longer continues to load frames if the animation cannot be initialized. I guess it's that's if you don't have enough memory for it. Like if you have an animation that's just too long, too big, so you go to create on the animation, and you say you want, I don't know, really a lot of frames there. Oh no, okay, yep, this one can't create it. Okay, so that's it. You know, it's going to check if it can. If it fails, well, it's just not going to load it. Alright, let's see what else. It is now possible to only load a DWA animation as a... Oh, yeah. Okay, it is now possible not only to load a DWA, a dog waffle animation, as a swap image, but now you can also load DWAs and AVIs into a swap image or even the alpha selection. Now that's a really cool one. Alright, let me explain. You go to the animation here, and at the bottom you'll see those two new options, animated swap image and animated selection. And both of these have an open DWA and open AVI. So what that means is that you can have any one of these, either a dog waffle animation that you may have saved from up here, or an AVI that you may have saved here or that you have from some other place. You can tag this and say, okay, this one is what I need to use as my swap image, which then becomes an animated swap image. Right, so let me show you an example. Let's say I'm drawing, let's create an animation with something simple. Let's first of all create a simple animation. So let's say just, I don't know, like 100 frames there. Okay, and well, there's not much animated here. Let's go and put something in there that's going to be animated. Let's put some snowfall, and let's make it dark snowfall. So dark, there you go, and a lot of it, and large. All right, so apply that. So now we have some dark snowfall coming down here. All right, so I'm saving that out as an AVI. Let's go and save this as an AVI, and I'm going to say this is 30 frames a second. And where do I want that? Just next to this here. This is just an AVI test. Test 1. A lot of junk mail coming in anytime here. All right, let's go test 1. Enregistrer. We want to save this. By the way, that's something I really like about saving to AVI. Depending on the codec you choose, this can be, first of all, lossless. Make sure you take a lossless codec if you still work with it. So you could do like no codec, I mean no compression, right? Full frames. But I work all the time with Lagarif. Lagarif is a lossless codec and it's fast. I find it even faster than the XVID compressor. So this is a really good one to use, and it's compressing also quite nicely. It's very small files, but it's going fast. All right, so now I have this animation. I can show it and test it here, and I want this animation to go into the swap buffer. Okay, so what basically, remember the swap buffer, you can go to the image and view it here. Where is it? Jump to the swap buffer. You can see, well, there's nothing in it right now. It's a static image, another one, not the one that we are looking at in the main buffer. Right, so I can jump back with J. I can also use here this big S here is a toggle, and you see it. Notice up here in the upper right, this image shows you what's your current image content. And so when we're looking at the swap buffer, there it is. Well, that swap buffer is potentially animated. How do we do that? Well, we do that actually by selecting this new option right there. We say animated swap buffer, open AVI. So I'm going to load this video that I just saved, or maybe another one. I'm going to say make this the swap buffer. Notice my choice of words. I'm not saying I'm loading it, I'm saying I'm using it. Okay, what's essentially happening is that I'm placing a pointer to it and say, okay, I want to go through that AVI as I'm going through the animation frames. When I'm actually rendering or doing something with it, the AVI is going to be used. It's not loading that entire AVI. It's not opening. It's not attempting to load it. So you can actually work with AVI files that are very large. What you're going to see is that it's going to use it at the time it needs it. And so where do we, for instance, use it now? Let's say this image here, still the one in the front, happens to be the same. I'm going to change that now. I'm going to put a different animation here. In fact, I'm going to go perhaps to animated and see if we can put something else there. I know, confetti, film flicker. Which one would be fun to use here? Well, you know what? The Starry Night. We've seen this one. Let's do that. But move it very slowly. So let's see if we can change that rotation to be very slowly, and the speed here also. Okay, so let's go and render that. So we have this animation with the Starry Night. Okay, we still have also that AVI file that we had tagged here. Right, it's flagged here on the swap buffer. We can check that. We click this icon up here in the upper right. You can see that that AVI is actually there and it is animated. As you scroll up through it, you can tell that it's not only moving your stars in the foreground, the bright white ones, but it's also moving down that dark snowfall effect. Unclick that. And so you can actually use that now for an animated effect. For instance, under the filters, notice how we have the combine with swap or displace by swap, right? This displacing is using the swap buffer to do a displacement effect here. Well, that displacement you don't have just on a single frame. You can do that across the entire frame sequence, for instance, through the timeline. With the timeline, you know that you can choose many filters there, and some of these filters are same thing here: combine with swap, composite with swap, or displace by swap. And so this one here, for instance, the displace filter, as you go through that, depending on how much displacement you want, you can see that it's doing it, but most importantly, it's actually displacing it against an animated swap buffer. So now you have two parts that animate: the image that you see in the foreground and the swap buffer behind it that's being used for displacement or whatnot. You could also use that actually for, let's say, a static view. The animation that we have in the front doesn't have to be actually animated. Let's say, for instance, we wanted let's start something really simple here. Let's go to the first frame and simply erase it and draw something into it. In fact, let's use some of our new buddies in the stickers, the 3D stickers brushes. Where are they? Over here, stickers. And let's get some of the sunshine or some of the stuffies, animals, salsa, veggies. Which ones? The cars. Let's get the cars. Okay, so we have a car here, we have another one here, we have one here. These are some of the car stamps or brushes that come with Dog Waffle 9. And so I want to displace that. Okay, and look what that does when I'm just using filter, displace by swap. You can see that it's doing some funky stuff. Well, I want that to come down, like as if it's raining, right? When you see rain coming down on your windshield in the car and you're looking at the street, you'll see this wobbly effect it does to it, and that's exactly what I'll do to it. So I'm going to create a static view. Oops, not 0, but let's say 100 frames. There you go. So I have 100 frames of that same static image here, and now I'm going to simply apply the timeline displace by swap. There it is, displace by swap, and I'm going to give it just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit of that displacement. But notice that even though the image here is static, it hasn't changed across the animation. The displacement itself is animated, and now you see it drip down. So I'm going to, let's render that, and then we can play that and see what happens as you then review the rendered animation. Look at that. So I'm now going to play it. Alright, so now it looks like we have water coming down the windshield as we're looking at that. And of course, it could also be an animation before we start displacing it. In fact, let's do that. Let me stop the animation. Let's undo this change, and I'm going to apply a little transition, like this car going from left to right, or the entire scene. Let's go and do a translation. Transform, where's the transform group? Convolution video, oh there it is, and then do a shift or a transform. Let's scale in a little bit so we have some margin and we can go and translate from one to the other. So we're actually doing a little transition from left to right. We're going to move the scene from left to right, and we're going to have this over here, move to the other side, apply that one. So we have 2 keyframes now. Let's make it the linear transition and apply that. So right now all we're doing is just moving it from left to right. Okay, there it is. Alright, and now we're going to apply what we did earlier. Let's apply that again with the displace. Well, let's see if perhaps the others are even better. Pool displace. Yeah, cool. Okay, let's do that. Apply that. Excuse me there. That was actually perhaps too much, but still we can see what the idea is. The image underneath is initially some sort of an animation, very soft and slowly moving, but now we have this displacement that's happening due to the animated swap buffer. So that's the idea with the animated swap buffer. You have a lot of capabilities with that come now, because you can have an animation that does a lot of stuff. It could be like here a displacement, but a lot of different ways to combine that swap buffer with the main image buffers. And both of these, either ones of these, can be animated, either totally unrelated to each other, right? Or actually one could be a copy of the other. You can take a AVI file, load it into the main buffer, and also load it into the swap buffer, and then do one, have one do some sort of a transform or combine with the other, and lots of different ways to work with that. Alright, so that I think is a fairly significant way to use it, and you can use that both for the swap buffer to be an animated swap buffer, and you can also have a animated selection mask. So now that's interesting, because if you, for instance, if you use a walk sequence from a 3D animation program and you have it rendered out as image sequences where there's a sequence of images that contain just the selection mask of the character, and then you have another one that contains the RGB values, you can actually have the selection mask load in. If you put it into a DWA or into AVI, you can load it and track it, so you can have the mask follow the actual object, even though initially they were in separate files. You can do a lot of really good stuff with that, and we'll do some tutorials that show that perhaps in a bit more detail. Alright, so that's that. Let's see, where do we have it? That was this one here. It is now possible to not only load a EWA animation as a swap image, but you can do that also with AVIs, both on the swap image and on the selection, on the alpha selection mask. All right. And as a final one here, it should be much faster or much safer to run multiple instances of the program now. Previously, plugins were not aware of which instance of the program to communicate with. This was a limitation of COM. There are now less plugins, fewer plugins, and most of them are non-critical to daily use. So it's sort of a change in the architecture of the program. Fewer parts of it run as external plugins to the main program, and even though that was a great feature to have in terms of programmatical ease of implementation, you can always add another thing that runs by itself and then also have it connect to Dogwaffle. The nice thing about this here is by integrating it, it is easier to have the program run in multiple instances. And if you launch it again, if I go and launch Dogwaffle, it will notice that. It will tell you, hey, there is another instance of the program here. This might not be intentional. When you see this, it might be that the prior session that you had maybe a day ago, you thought you quit the program, and maybe you clicked the X in the upper right corner and it didn't quite totally close it. I've seen that happen, and I'm not sure exactly what part of Windows is failing to doesn't understand the no or go, right? So it's left there, and that is an indicator that you need to go to the Open Task Manager. Click the Open Task Manager, find the two programs. Yep, there it is. There are two of them, and find more details and find the details, and then go and delete it. But close the one program that you don't want to use anymore. But it is very possible also that you may want to keep them both. Right? So when you continue, you actually have now two sessions of Dogwaffle running, and here they are. There's one here, and there's one there, and so this is the one I was using before, with this thing here too, and then here's the new one that I haven't used yet, but I can use that also to do all sorts of funky stuff, and including writing drawings and hot dogs. All right, so that's that for this part 3 of Dogwaffle. There is quite a bit more to explore, and we'll do that of what's new in Dogwaffle 9. So we ended here with this one here, with regard to the ability it's safer to run multiple instances of the program now. It's not covering absolutely everything quite yet. It's probably not necessary, but you'll see this as a thing. And then there is a few more items we'll want to go through, and actually quite a bit more when you go through that list. I think this is a good opportunity to really discover or rediscover some of these filters. There are a lot of filters here that are internalized, that are faster, that have some sort of new features, and I'd like to just take you through that and discover along the way what you can do with Dogwaffle as we play with these features, enhanced or new, whichever they are. Alright, thanks for watching, and see you soon in another tutorial.